monkey, they accept our free rent, they accept all of the other stuff. They have to agree to sit in on entrepreneurship classes. Because what we found about entrepreneurs is they always have this great idea and they just assume the world is just going to find it. And you start talking to them about finance and sales and marketing channels and all of the more mundane aspects of launching a business, and that's where they tend to fall apart. So a key part of the brew, and I want to recognize him here, is Professor Bill Dugan from my alma mater, University of Wisconsin Whitewater, who is Bill is a professor of entrepreneurship who at no charge to us, I'm sure Whitewater pays him, but at no charge to us, comes in and runs weekly classes for the brew participants, where they sit down and talk about all of these other aspects of launching a business. That's what makes our brew participants successful, whereas other accelerator participants often fail. The other thing is we have a clock ticking. A lot of accelerators are like roach motels, okay? They move in and they don't move out. Ours isn't built that way. You have 1 year and you are out on your ear. So it's kind of like telling your 17-year-old kid that he's got 1 year to find a job and get himself established because he's moving out. I want to be an empty nester. So we give them the 1 year. Most of the graduate, and every year they graduate, we're going to see the graduates today from the third class, and we're going to see the fourth class starting. And we're very proud to say that all of our graduates are still in business. They are still out there and they're still busy. So we have had 20 startups graduate through our brew program. They've created 42 full-time jobs at this point. Many of the startups have been sharing offices at the Global Water Center, and they're going to be moving into the Global Water Center 2 in 2017 when we open that space. And we've expanded the Brew Accelerator to include some corporate tracks. Now, this is really exciting. Veolia has stepped forward and announced POW, Empowering Opportunities in Water, and they are graduating their first class of startups today. So we have some major Milwaukee area corporations that are also stepping up with the funding to allow us to offer this program to a wider group. And we issued a press release yesterday announcing that the Brew, something called Brew Corporate, which is a program sponsored by A.O. Smith. And it is now looking for startups with technologies focused on water treatment, water heating, and sensors. So if you know of anybody who has an idea, who wants to start a company around those areas, A.O. Smith has money and support to help them do that. This is pretty exciting. This has been one of the most successful aspects of the Water Council, is our ability to attract and help these young entrepreneurs develop new water technologies. And you know, I often get the question as to why Badger Meter is so involved in the Water Council and why Badger Meter, actually, we spend a lot of time, we spend a lot of money. And I finally said to one of my board members who was asking the question, I said, well, the Water Council is an apiary, okay? You know what an apiary is? Bees, okay? Now, a beekeeper goes out and buys wood and screen and nutrients and everything else, and he builds a beehive. Does he do that because he wants to provide housing to homeless bees? No, why does he do it? Because he wants what? The honey, okay? He wants the honey. So Badger Meter helped build the Global Water Center. We didn't do that because we wanted to provide housing to homeless entrepreneurs, okay? If I want to see 20 new startups, I have to get on a plane and travel to 20 cities. Or I can build a beehive and have them come to me. And that is the advantage of being part of the Water Council. We get a look at these new startups. Several of Badger Meter's acquisitions over the last 5 years have come from our relationships at the Water Council. And that's really the benefit of it. And so even a large corporation like mine is always looking at these entrepreneurs saying, hey, maybe there's something here we can learn from. Maybe there's something here that we can enhance our own shareholder value with. It's an apiary. So we're very excited about that. And a big supporter of the Water Council and the Brew program from its beginning has been the Lieutenant Governor of our state of Wisconsin, Rebecca Clayfish. And it's my honor to introduce Rebecca Clayfish. She's got a few words for us. Rebecca.
So, Rich, does this mean that you and Badger Meter are the queen bee?
Somebody. Well, that's my wife.
Yes, sir, smart man. He said, that's his wife. I am so thrilled to be with you today. I get it. The apiary analogy is perfect. And it just so happens that my sister and brother-in-law just purchased from a Wisconsin entrepreneur a bee distribution company. And so it's a perfect analogy here. And it's why, frankly, I support the Global Water Center and the Water Council, because I get how Wisconsin benefits here. I get how I can travel the world, the governor can travel the world, and we can talk about Wisconsin in a global context, how we are making a difference to the world through a legitimate entree into the freshwater technology market in our domestic American market through Milwaukee, Wisconsin. That's an important pitch for us to be able to make. I just got back from Israel a couple of months ago, and I happen to know that the brew began because a buddy of mine and yours traveled to Israel once upon a time and saw an incubator there called the Kinrod. He saw these baby companies growing up to do tremendous things, and he understood that small businesses, the kind that we will see graduate today, create between 60 and 80% of new American jobs. And he also understood that in order to benefit from the honey produced, it would have to be right here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Rich Musin, thank you so much for your great investment in the future of water technology right here in Wisconsin. Would you join me in giving him a round of applause? We want the brew graduates to be successful. We want them to be a part of the water technology ecosystem that we have already built and begun establishing right here in the Metro Milwaukee area. Already, we are envisioning more buildings in this great hub of water technology. Already, $211 million have been invested in this freshwater technology hub. Already, hundreds of academics and researchers from here in Wisconsin and across the world are congregating to solve the world's water problems from right here at home. And already, there are 37,000 workers in this industry here in Wisconsin. We want the graduates today to grow up to be one of the companies that represent 48 different job creators here in Wisconsin in freshwater technology, making $10 million or more every single year. Whether your goal is to get bought or to grow up, we want you to succeed. And we want you to succeed right here at home. We want there to be growing opportunities in this industry cluster for your friends and for your neighbors. And we want those in academia to be great participants. Professor Dugan, what a wonderful extension of the Wisconsin idea that you come from one of the most renowned schools in America for business, Whitewater, down the street from where I live, and you come and you teach here in Milwaukee. But when I think about the fact that it's not just the University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, it's UWM and it's Madison, it's UW-Stevens Point. Not only that, it's our Wisconsin Technical College system and other schools within our University of Wisconsin system. It's Marquette University, all joining forces to move not just Milwaukee, not just Wisconsin, but the entire globe forward in putting forth real and substantial, sustainable solutions that can change the world from our little corner of it. So graduates, congratulations. We welcome you to the economic ecosystem that is Wisconsin. Please stay for a very, very, very long time.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. So now I do want to introduce somebody so we don't miss her. And is Elizabeth Thielen in the room here somewhere? Elizabeth, where are you? At least stand up, please. Okay. Let's give Elizabeth. I don't even have to tell them why you're important and they applaud for you. That's the kind of power this woman has. Elizabeth is our brewmaster or brewmistress or whatever you call it, where her responsibility, I'm not going to say anything bad, where her responsibility is part of the Water Council, her responsibility is to work with these brew companies and to help them through this process. And she has done just a fantastic job. And normally she would be up here giving out the awards and introducing you to these companies, but Elizabeth kind of threw out her voice the other day, right? And so without her voice, we've asked another person who's been instrumental in the brew program in helping these entrepreneurs, John Tillotson, who's going to come up here and introduce you to the companies. John? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. How's everyone doing? This is the fun part of the two-day conference, in my opinion. I have a chance to introduce a terrific group of entrepreneurs, bringing all kinds of very exciting technology to the market, commercializing it, and through doing this through the brew process. A little bit on my background. I am currently the CEO of Microbe Detectives. I'm very proud of that role. Microbe Detectives was a winner in the first year of the brew program in 2013. Some of you may know the founder, Trevor Gillen. Trevor has got his PhD from the University of Wisconsin-Madison back in 2013, and he went right from his PhD work to launching Microbe Detectives through the brew program back then. Trevor and I partnered up this past September. My background is, I do have a science background, not quite as elaborate as Trevor's, but I've been more of a commercialization guy. So I've been commercializing technologies for many years, at least 20 more years than Trevor. And so it's really a great match. And I gotta have a shout out to Dean Amhouse. Where is Dean, if he's present, because I think it's a good example of what is supposed to happen here. I got to know Dean Amhouse probably now is about 4 years ago. And I first came up and I had a chance to visit the Global Water Center. And like many of us here, I was like, wow, this is an amazing place. And at that moment, I knew I was going to make it a big part of my career moving forward. And so Dean introduced me to Trevor, and the rest is history. I'm also very proud to be a coach in the brew program along with Professor Dugan. And this year I also had an opportunity to serve as one of the judges in the Brew 4 competition. So I am completely immersed in this whole process and I'm having an absolutely fantastic time. It's my pleasure to be here. So the purpose of this next session is to recognize all of the winners. We have some that are graduating the Brew program, Brew 3. We have the new group, Brew 4, that we're going to announce here. And we also have the Veolia POW program. Everyone is going to be coming up on stage and receiving some recognition and some awards. A couple of comments about the role of being an entrepreneur. Those of you that are familiar with Elizabeth's talk track about the entrepreneur role, she likes to use the race car analogy, okay? Turns out that her family happens to be in the race car business. And she likes to associate, what is it like, race car drivers are kind of similar to entrepreneurs. To me, I think it makes perfect sense because the first thing I think of is that race car drivers got to be a little bit crazy, all right? To decide that it's a good idea to jump into a vehicle with thousands of pounds of steel and race around a track and bump into people and potentially crash into the wall. I am an entrepreneur and I am definitely very crazy. But I think it's true. I was at a conference out in California where Steve Blank, some of you may know who Steve Blank is. He's the author of the Lean Startup methodology, which is now considered to be the scientific method for how to professionalize the startup process. And he had us all over at his house for dinner. He had, to give you an idea of that experience, there were 100 students in this boot camp, and he had seated rounds, and he held the whole thing in his kitchen, okay? So that was my experience with Steve Blank. But he said, for all the entrepreneurs, you guys are the crazy people. You're the crazy people that despite logic, you decide it's a good idea to start up a company knowing that 70% of them fail and the odds are stacked against you. But the thing about entrepreneurs, if you get to know the brew people in the building, everybody's got a smile on their face. It's really a line of work where people can pursue their dreams and their passions and just really enjoy their work. And many of them become very successful. Through the brew program, by professionalizing the startup process, we're giving them a much better chance of success. Much better chance of success, and the odds are much better if you become a member of the program. So I'm going to move on now to the recognition portion. I'd like to start off by recognizing the judges for the Brew 4 competition. So if you could just please stand when I mention your name. First off is Dr. Bill Dugan. Also a coach, and I should point out that Dr. Dugan is the longest standing coach. He was a coach for the Brew program since its inception back in 2013, and he's also been one of the judges since 2013. So he's our resident expert. As I mentioned, I as well am a judge. Marion Singer, is Marion Singer here from Wellintel? Or how about Nick Hayes? Is Nick Hayes here?
Yeah, they're both in the field.
What's that?
She's in DC, he's in the field.
Okay, they're both gone. Okay, Wellintel is a winner of Brew 2, so they are living the life of entrepreneurship, and Marion was a judge this year. Dr. Barry Liner. Barry Liner. Senior Director of Water Science and Engineering with the Water Environment Federation in Washington, D.C. Dr. David Garman. Dr. Garman is the Associate Vice Chancellor of the University. Everybody knows David, right? But in case you don't, you got to. Associate Vice Chancellor of the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee and the past Dean of the School of Freshwater Sciences. Kevin Yetri. Kevin is the Managing Director of Braith Matthews. Aaron Hager. Aaron Hager here. Okay, Aaron is the Vice President of Entrepreneurship and Innovation for the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. Malcolm Kinnaird. We all saw Malcolm earlier today, Division President for Evoqua Water Technologies. So this is quite an amazing team of judges. We've got a tremendous depth of knowledge coming from diverse backgrounds and points of view. And in addition to all of our analyses that we went through in the Brew 4 competition, measurement and analytics and that type of thing, at the end of the day, we all would ask ourselves, would you personally invest your own money into this new idea or into this team? And that was really the litmus test that we applied as judges in Brew 4. So I'm going to move on now. The next round of recognition is for all of the support people that are involved. And the thing about the Brew program, those that are familiar with it, the support piece is huge. It's a huge component to the overall success of the program. There are all kinds of people that are here to provide support, mentorship, advice, and so forth. And so I want to take a moment to recognize all the support folks. First off, would all of the, and please when I call your name, if you could please remain standing. So first off, all of the past Brew winners. Be curious to see how many Brew winners are here from prior days. Okay. So here's the deal on that. There is a whole bunch more of them. They're all out there working like slaves right now because they're trying to start up a company. Okay, how about anyone from Michael Best? Is anyone from Michael Best here? Okay, and Michael Best is a law firm that provides legal counsel and is considered a preferred part of our preferred advisor program. Thank you very much for all of your support, Michael Best. How about from Whipfley Accountants? Okay, Dave Christensen provides tax accounting and financial advice to the Brew members. been a terrific service as well. How about from Grafe Engineering? Matt Bednarski. Sage Water, Dennis Webb. Okay, anyone from the WEDC? Okay, the WEDC, Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. They're a little bit important since they're a major source of funding for the whole program. So I guess they're helping out a little bit there. Anyone from Pentair? Okay, from Pentair, it's a member of that preferred advisor program. Okay, I'm almost done, but as you can see, there's a lot of support. Anyone from Marquette University Law and Entrepreneurship Clinic? Is Nathan here by any chance? Okay. Once again, this is a law clinic from Marquette University, and they spent time with the brew participants. Yes, there are legal issues, okay, that we need to work through. We have those types of resources to support us. Then finally, University of Wisconsin Whitewater, University of Wisconsin Milwaukee. Anyone from either of those two academic organizations? They're all over the place, so it probably is half the people in here, I'm not sure. But I think the point is clear. We have tremendous support here. The infrastructure is top rate. And you really can't get that kind of an opportunity anywhere else, really, if you want to start up a water tech company. And so I'd like to, once again, thank everyone for all of their support. Okay, now we're going to move on to recognizing the graduates of Brew 3. So as I call your name, as I understand it from Elizabeth, you all know what to do. So otherwise we'll be herding cats, so we'll give it a try. Okay, first up is Iconic. And I'm going to summarize and brief the company. So Iconic, we have Harrison Richards and Tuka Valiama. Iconic is making inspecting water mains and district heating pipes as safe, simple, and economical as sending a text. They're disrupting the pipe inspection industry in brief. One note about Iconic, they just last week, they are a winner of the Wisconsin Governor's Business Plan Contest. They were a finalist in the top 12 diligent dozen. So that's quite an accomplishment. Once again, let's give them. Okay, Opti Technique, we have Jose Ramirez, Dr. Jose Ramirez and Dr. Rudy Strickler. Opti Technique makes a novel patent-pending system for measuring the state of aggregation of particles or droplets in a liquid or gas, and to effectively automate the treatment of wastewater. We are doing pictures. Okay. Okay, Opti Technique is also a winner of the Governor's Business Plan Contest. They were in the top 25 award winners. Okay. Next up is Oxymem, Mark Gearing. Oxymem has, in my opinion, has disrupted the wastewater market by creating an entirely new category called membrane aerated biofilm reactor, which is not something most of you will probably understand, but it is a new category of technology. And one comment about Oxymem is they, this year, received their first major investment, which is a little company most of you have not heard of. It's called Dow Chemical. Okay, so they are an investor. There's an interesting story there, which we won't go into, but Mark is now employed by Dow Chemical. Okay, so congratulations. Next up is Radom. We have, going to struggle here, Ashok Menon, Jovan Yevtek, and Velibor Pikelia. Radom offers the next generation of trace metal analysis, which reduces recurring costs fivefold, enables portability, while accelerating on-site and on-time data acquisition. Radom designs and commercializes the next generation ICP instrumentation. And one comment about Radom, they cut a major deal with a corporation we're all familiar with, which will go unnamed. It's an intellectual property licensing deal. And we spent many hours through many sessions, but they had a very successful outcome with that. So once again, congrats to Radom. Last but certainly not least is Solar Waterworks, Doug Winke. Doug and team provide proven economical alternatives to traditional treatment technologies, which can be applied where electric power is not available or where sustainability is a priority. My one comment about Doug Winke and Solar Waterworks, Doug is the winner of the most improved brew member for this year. And most improved, and I'll tell you what, we may look friendly, but we're actually not that friendly in class. Sometimes we beat up on people quite a bit. And, but that's how it's supposed to work. We're all there to learn, and we have to be open to feedback, and we have to learn from the feedback that we receive. That's how we get better, right? So I'm sure that there are at least 1 or 2 meetings where we gang tackled Doug, I think. But the thing about him is he listened to everything that we said. He held his composure, and he'd come back, and we're like, I think he'd listened to everything that we said to you. It's amazing, really, how he was able to incorporate the feedback that we gave him. He's done phenomenal work. This is my way of a compliment. So. Okay, so once again, congratulations to everyone. It's been great working with all of you. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not here because of the pay that I'm getting from Elizabeth. I can tell you that. I do this because it's really something that I enjoy, and it's been a great year with you guys. Okay, you guys are going to stay there. I'm now going to move on to Brew 4. So we're now going to announce the winners of the Brew 4 contest. We'll go through the same process. A couple of comments about the process. This year, the applicant pool, the contestants for the competition grew quite a bit over last year and prior years. So we do have really solid momentum building with the program. We conducted 2 rounds of reviews. The first was based on documentation. If you made it to the second round, you had to pitch your company, your products, your idea online with a bunch of judges that you can't even tell who's, it was an intimidating process, I would imagine, but that's what we did on round 2. And so I'm going to go in alphabetical order. First up is Corn Cob, Doug Huang, and Dick Davey, both from Wisconsin. Corn Cob has invented the perfect membrane filter. This dynamic disc membrane uses less energy, requires minimal pre-treatment, and achieves self-cleaning during operation. The technology will change water and change lives by providing solutions for safer, cleaner water that is accessible and affordable.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
Congratulations. Okay, next up, DMR International, Rick Latella and Mark Chasen from Illinois. DMR International engineers and provides environmentally responsible materials for a sustainable future. Their Novex AMG family of additive systems has demonstrated unique solutions for water filtration systems.
More happy Illinoisans come to Wisconsin.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, some people say they're from the dark side, but I'm from Illinois. Sorry. Next up is Energy Tech Innovations, Brian Johnson, also from Wisconsin. Energy Tech Innovations is developing a newer low-cost water-based gas treatment method that will convert biogas into renewable natural gas, which is a greenhouse gas neutral fuel. There's a lot there. This new water-based gas cleaning process is based on proven technology and expect to result in significant cost savings over current upgrading technologies. Okay, next up, Metamateria. Tim Marth and Dr. Richard Shore. Metamateria is dedicated to providing products that more efficiently clean water in order to improve the lives of others worldwide. We accomplish this with novel and nano-enhanced materials that creatively and economically address difficult challenges for water cleanup in order to sustain supplies and so forth. I would like to point out that they are an SBI past SBIR winner. They've raised $280,000 and hold 5 patents for the material. Okay, next is Smart Waters, Jamie Gordy and Rupert Whiting from British Columbia, Canada. Smart Waters increases city resilience by harvesting rainwater and holding it indefinitely in order to provide strategic reserves for all municipal water needs. By repurposing existing and planned stormwater buffers, Smart Waters selectively treats captured water so that it can be stored for long periods without creating health risks, supported by Internet of Things, there's a tech word, monitoring. City managers can view the quality and quantity of water and reserves across their city from the desk or handheld device. Smart Waters. Okay, last but certainly not least is Wizran. Arsalan Lodi and Arsala Khan from California. We're pulling them from the West Coast now, folks, okay? So Wizran measures water for you to manage from source to tap. They provide, it's a software business. They provide real-time business intelligence services to enable a smart water grid to manage non-revenue water. Okay, now we have 2 additional contenders that we were going to recognize here. They are the runner-ups for the Brew 4 contest. The thing about it is, you know, the talent base that we were looking at was quite strong, very difficult to make decisions. There is a degree of subjectivity, right? Because you're dealing with relatively limited information. So the two companies that I'm now going to recognize are very strong innovators, and you actually have already heard from them so far in this conference. First is HelioPure, Jean-Marc Houllier. And we've heard from them in the Innovation Showcase, so I think that their product can stand for itself. They are now located in the Global Water Center, so we'll be looking forward to working with HelioPure. Last and certainly not, oops, getting ahead of myself. Okay, and HelioPure. Okay, last and certainly not least, ARC Labs, Robbie Hillis. ARC Labs was also in the Innovation Showcase. We just heard from Robbie this morning. And so once again, very exciting technology. And I would say this guy's a pretty darn good salesman, I would say, from what I've seen. But we're gonna look under the hood on the technology, but he can sell it. Congratulations. Oh, and ARC Labs is from Alabama, as Robbie pointed out earlier. Okay, again, congratulations to all of the winners of Brew 4. Okay, Next up is the Veolia POW program. Rich introduced the Veolia POW program. It is the first corporate sponsored accelerator program, which is also run out of the Global Water Center. I have the opportunity to work with these guys. I'm learning new stuff every day. It's really exciting technology here. So this group is also graduating from Veolia's POW program, as I say, is the first corporate sponsored program. One comment about this program. This program came about not only due to the success of the brew, because it is the first corporate sponsored program, but it's also due to the vision of Veolia to look outside of their internal innovation process and to explore new ways to find disruptive technologies that they need to grow their business. I'd also like to recognize the Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District, who has had a key role in propping up this first corporate sponsored accelerator program. So first up is Nanogas Technologies. And Len Bland, you all heard from Len Bland, is Mimi Lee here? Okay, so for Nanogas Technologies. Len is probably out in an oil field somewhere right now, is my guess.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly.
Congratulations. Nutrient Recovery and Upcycling, LLC, out of Wisconsin, Menahem Tabanpour. We heard from, it's also referred to as NRU. They are a nutrient recovery company that develops technologies and provides services for agricultural, industrial, and urban wastewater treatment facilities across the globe. Some of the key aspects of their product is to capture phosphorus and nitrogen in the waste treatment process and to convert that into fertilizer, which they can sell as a product. Pretty interesting business model. So congratulations to last and certainly not least is Wave Stream Technologies, Eric Beydoun. So once again, I think we've all heard from Eric. He did a much better job explaining his company than I could, so I think we've got that covered. Okay. Okay, so what do you guys think? Pretty impressive. Lots of opportunity, lots of work, lots of innovation. It is a fertile ground for bringing powerful innovations into the water space on a global level. So that concludes my portion of the ceremony, and I'd like to thank the Lieutenant Governor once again for your comments and supporting us here today. Really appreciate that. Maybe another round. I think so. I really liked what I heard. And at this point, I believe I'll turn it back over to Rich.
Rebecca says I'm obviously a nervous public speaker, right? Jesus. And of course, you turned this over to me while I was still answering Badger Meter emails, so now I'm just a little bit off my game here. But first, I want to thank the brew participants and congratulate the winner. You're getting a kick out of this, aren't you? She knew I was in the middle of something when he introduced me. I want to congratulate everybody. Thank you. And I get to draw, I believe next, I get to draw the winners of the exhibitor game. How long are you going to make these people stand here?
I'm trying to move them.
Don't strain your voice, Elizabeth. Well, let's give them all a big round of applause again. Great job, guys. Thank you. So apparently some of you did visit all the exhibitor booths. And by the way, I got to say how impressed I am and how crowded this room still is. This is very impressive that everybody has stuck with us through this. And I know why you're all waiting. One, you want to see whether or not you won the Apple Watch, okay? But right after I'm done, Dean Amhouse is going to come up here and say a few words. So the question is, after I draw the Apple Watch, will there be a mass exodus before Dean comes up? Because nobody wants to hear him. I hope not, because Dean has some great things to tell us. So let's see who won the Apple Watch. I'll reach in here and randomly draw my own name. If I'm lucky. Let's see. Mark Chesson at DMRI. Mark, where are you? Where's Mark? Mark, right here. Oh, we actually have the watch here. Come on up, Mark. I can actually hand you something. This is good. Little side heavy. There you go. Mark, congratulations. Thank you. Yep. Thank you. Okay, be sure to declare that on your taxes. In the state of Wisconsin, gambling winnings are taxable unless you have offsetting gambling losses. So I would suggest you go right to Potawatomi. They'll take care of that for you. You won't have any problem at all. So at this point, it is a great pleasure of mine to introduce the man who really leads the Water Council, really helps us make everything happen. I get to play a strategic role. He has to play both the strategic and the tactical role and actually make things happen. Dean Amhouse, President and CEO of the Water Council. Let's give him a big round.
Thank you very much, Rich. And I'll tell you, I've been working with Rich now the whole time through this whole process of developing the Water Council, as well as Paul Jones. And it truly is an experience, as you can imagine, to work with Rich, but it's also an inspiration as well. And we have a board of directors that is frankly really amazing. I mean, these are CEOs of businesses, of universities, government as well. And we're really very honored to be able to have just a remarkable board of directors that allows the staff to experiment and explore and to fail and to succeed along the way. And I want to recognize a couple board members who have retired from the board. Dan Bader from Bader Philanthropies, who's been with us from the beginning. David Ryder from Miller Coors. Both of those individuals retired from the board of directors, but we've added 4 more new board members. Preston Cole from the city of Milwaukee. Catherine Gale from Gale Foods, Juan Penn from Wells Fargo, and you'll start to see also how we are starting to expand. So Juan Penn is actually in San Francisco, and he leads the clean tech group for Wells Fargo globally. And then we also have Dion Van Ass from Miller Coors. And so the board continues to be strengthening itself, starting to look across the country as well as globally, and it's a recognition of the organization as well. Now, I'm very, very fortunate to be able to work with a remarkable staff, and I say this to everybody repeatedly. I am, blessed to have a team that we love to work together. We laugh together. We work very hard. I just sort of reminded last night, we were laughing together a lot. And Karen Frost was telling us some stories, and I mean, literally to the point of crying from laughter together. And I think that's what builds a great team, when you can have that kind of united aspect of things. And I want to recognize these individuals because they really work for you day in and day out. And I literally say this is 7 days a week. These are people who are working continuously. Our Water Council interns, who you are seeing, some of them, are Beto right here, Colin Flanner back here as well. Colin is one of those individuals who started out in high school, is stuck with us and continuing as well. Ari is returning from last year. And Dylan Walhutter where's Dylan? Dylan is back here as well and just joined us to work with the Alliance for Water Stewardship. So thank you very much for all of your help, and hopefully we're training you to move on in careers and maybe even within the water area. I do want to recognize the staff as well. Angela May, who is my executive assistant. She's my right and left arm. Angela, could you please stand up, please? There you are. If anybody's looking to get on my calendar, you talk to Angela. And she's got the challenge of trying to put it all together, but it's been wonderful to be able to work with her. I'm also fortunate is that a year ago, through the support and encouragement of the board of directors, I was able to hire Amy Jensen, who is our director of finance and operations. Amy. What to say is that when we were going through the hiring process, the final day of accepting applications and Amy's resume came in, I mean, it must have been at like 4:59. And I looked at it, I go, oh my word, I may actually have a chance at getting her. And she's been a great addition, so thank you very much, Amy. The person who I forgot a few years ago when I was going through this, and so I have actually wrote down notes on this, Elizabeth Thielen, who I actually called during a staff meeting. Ellen, I have troubles with names, so Elizabeth Thielen, I know you're here, there. Where's Elizabeth? She's out with the brew folks, okay. But she has really brought together the brew, and to see that long line of individuals that she helped to master and to develop was wonderful. Scott Mosley, who is our Director of Investment Strategies. Scott is out probably with the brew folks taking pictures as well. He's been able to take us and start to move into the venture capital and angel investors. Karen Frost, our Director of Small Business Development over here. And Karen, has really been able to start to embrace small businesses across the entire country. And if you haven't had a chance, talk to her about the Global Water Port, which is an amazing, amazing tool. I call it Google on steroids. And it does some remarkable things. If you're in water, you need to be in that portal and utilize it. It is free. Please take advantage of it and talk to Karen about that. Matt Howard, who a year ago joined us. Matt's over here. He's our Director of Alliance for Water Stewardship for North America. He and Elizabeth actually go next week to Canada, and we are part of the Canadian Water Summit. Matt is now, I think he's spending more time in the western part of the United States where, yes, they have lots and lots of issues. And it's wonderful to be able to have somebody with his sustainability background from working in the city and federal government who's now leading this for us across North America. Isaiah Perez, Isaiah right here, who is our Member Services Development Coordinator. Isaiah started with us as an intern. And it's interesting, and I've commented about this with him, and I've said this publicly as well. Isaiah started very quiet. You never heard Isaiah say a word. We'd like pull Isaiah out to say something. And what's been interesting is that now he is leading the tours at the Global Water Center, and I'm learning from him about all the things that are going on. And it's been really wonderful to see Isaiah blossom. So congratulations, Isaiah. Thank you. One of our newest members of the staff, Jeremy Troyden, back in the area here. He's our web and graphic designer. So all the things that you're starting to see, this is the evolution, thanks to Jeremy, bringing to us a whole new touch of design that is going to take us to another level as well. 3 years ago, when we were doing our water summit, we had Megan Jensen, who put this whole thing together. And it's been interesting to see her transformation. She too started with the Water Council as an intern, and we were really impressed with her. We stole her away from Badger Meter. Thank you very much, Rich. And we were able to get Megan Jensen, who is our Director of Marketing and Membership as well. And so all of this in terms of the assembling and putting this all together, she's been right at the center of it with her team from a marketing standpoint. Now, not at last, Monica Hermanson. Monica, where are you? Oh, Monica. Please, Monica, come out. All of the things that you saw for the last 2 days, it is Monica's fault. She has really been remarkable, and I think she deserves a huge round of applause. The comments that we heard from individuals, those of you who are here, one person said the best that he's ever been at in the last 5 years in terms of organizing the panel, the individuals. Monica, you've outdone yourself. Good luck next year, okay? You've got a big challenge ahead of you. And lastly, because we really want to close it out, and I want to thank Charles Fishman. Because, in fact, Charles, really. We've heard a lot of very positive comments about the summit this year. We changed the format. It was a little bit of a, let's see if we can pull this thing off. And part of it was the fact that from a staff standpoint, we were frankly tired of PowerPoints, and we were tired of the breakout sessions and the, where do I go and so on. And so we had a really sort of strange idea of saying, can we do something different? And could we really have a conversation around great ideas? And what was key to that was to have the right individual to lead us through that whole process. And that was Charles. And I still remember calling him up and going, I've never done anything like this at all. I was very confident that he could pull it off because of his understanding, his experience within water, as well as a journalist, his probing, his questions. And he took the considerable time. As you probably saw, he interviewed every single individual ahead of time and spent probably an hour with everybody, starting to gather information, gathering stories, which he brought to the mix. So Charles, I thank you with my deep heart. And I want to bring you back up because we're going to finish this off with a little bit of a conversation real fast. And I don't know, there's the mic right here. I'll just grab it. So we only have just a few minutes to talk, but
I think that's all they need.
I know. People are like, let's get out of here, okay?
Charles, again.
Yeah, well, now this is your turn to
I'm
be able
answering. I'm
to.
answering.
Yeah, well, you're answering questions, but I think, we did this on purpose to be able to have you here and to weave all of this stuff together, really around resilience. And if it's one water, it's one moderator as well. So,
let me remind you, there were two things. There's lots of stuff we didn't talk about today, of course. There are two things that people who were on the stage talked to me about that I want to pass on the off chance that they will be useful to you all here and in the wider audience. Patrick Schultz, the young man from Veolia who was up here for the finance panel, we never got to capital spending. Patrick Schultz and Veolia have analyzed capital spending on water projects. And he didn't take me deep into that analysis, but here's what they found. About a third of the money is spent on the bidding process and the consultants you hire during that process. So if you've got a $600 million project, $200 million goes in the planning and consultants. A third goes to managing the process internally. Another $200 million to managing the project, and a third goes to actually building what you're trying to build. So a $600 million project from Veolia's analysis often results in $200 million worth of infrastructure and $400 million worth of overhead. They think that they can take parts one and parts two by structuring the management of the project differently and save you half the 30% in part one and half the 30% in part two, which of course comes to 30%. That on a $600 million project, they can actually get you a $400 million piece of infrastructure instead of a $200 million piece of infrastructure. So I'm sorry we didn't get to that, and I'm sorry I don't think Patrick is still here, but if that's true, if that's as true as the $100 million a year they helped New York City save off their operations budget, that's a really important insight because I think anybody in the room who's involved in that kind of system is going to be spending real money. So if we're managing those projects in a kind of immature way, and there's a more sophisticated way of doing it, there's lots of money to be harvested there. And the second thing, which applies directly to this room and to you, is David Sedlak. Is David Sedlak still here? I don't think he's here either. The Berkeley professor who was up here yesterday with Carter Stapleton. David Sedlak has actually gotten interested in the question of how you create community-based, metropolitan area-based centers of excellence. Where did Silicon Valley actually come from? How come it's there? Where did Research Triangle Park actually come from? How come it's there? How come Boston is this incredible, brilliant center of medical research? And I know he wanted to talk about that because that's, in fact, what you guys are trying to do here in Milwaukee. He actually has a paper up online. I don't think he calls them centers of excellence, but you can find the paper on how communities create communities of expertise. And I think the most important element of that, I actually read the paper and then I talked to him about it. The most important element is resilience, is diversity. That is, you can't, as the Milwaukee Department of Economic Development, say, we're going to be a center of water excellence. Let's just pass a resolution and do it. And you can't just have a bunch of companies, you and I and somebody in the audience, we were talking about Minneapolis, which has at least the same level of sophistication when it comes to water companies in place, but a different attitude. So there are lots of reasons that a place like Silicon Valley exists. You need the right attitude, you need universities, you need people thinking where you want to be in 20 years, you need an organization like the Water Council, but you also need lots of players who aren't, just going to come to meetings every month. And so anyway, for those interested in how that plays out, Sedlak has actually thought a lot about that. So 2 pieces we didn't get to.
Well, and I think too is yesterday, there were a lot of different quotes I was sort of writing down, but that courage and leadership, and we heard that this morning.
Maureen Stapleton.
Yeah, and this morning we heard it out of George and Karen as well. It's just the notion of we have to do something different, and take that level of risk to be able to push the limit and to maybe ask the question, can we do something differently? And I think that's what, whether it's Resilient City or One Water, whatever we want to talk about, that's what's going to be required.
Well, here's what I think. You asked me a couple weeks ago to pay attention to what I was hearing in the big picture. When I give a standard water talk, I often begin by saying, and some of you who've heard me may have heard this, if a really great surgeon went to sleep in 1975 and woke up this morning in 2016, no matter how talented or renowned that surgeon was, no one in this room would let that man or woman operate on it. Medicine has changed way too much in the last 40 years for that person to know what was going on. But in fact, and this may be stretching the truth just a little bit, if a water engineer went to sleep in 1975 and had been employed at the Milwaukee Water Department, it's quite likely that that person, who would be a man most likely, could work the overnight shift alone, because the world of water, in fact, has not changed that much. Nothing like the rest of the world that we're used to. Water still needs a revolution. Most water utilities don't have George Hawkins or Karen Gunz or Carter Stapleton or David Sedlak or any of the other folks we've had up here. And 2 things struck me. The first is water shouldn't be a silent service anymore. That doesn't make any sense. There's no point in modesty. Almost every single person up here, health infrastructure, money, and dramatic change, they all said the same thing. The key is to be able to communicate effectively, mostly with the people you don't communicate with at all, which is your customers, the people out who are using your water. That's the key to all the support that's necessary to do everything else. So being quiet, which sort of, there's a little modesty there and a little pride, that doesn't work anymore. So that's point one. Point two is, I think, although we didn't talk about it, you've mentioned it, One Water, getting everybody who's involved in water in the community in a professional, on a professional basis, the stormwater people, the wastewater, water resource people, the drinking water people, the environment people, in the same house is vitally important. Imagine running a subway system where there was an organization in charge of the tracks, an organization in charge of the trains, and an organization in charge of the schedule. The subways would never arrive. And in fact, that's the level of waste and sort of walking past each other, not realizing what can be done together when utilities are separate. So I think those two things, to me, almost everybody up here in some way or other made those points.
We've had three people actually, that we talked to in advance and just wanted to say at the end of this, just to give their general impressions. And I'd like to ask them, for like 30 seconds, just to sort of their thoughts. In Barry Liner, you've been a big friend of the Water Council and everything that you're doing, and you've seen this whole mixture. What's your impressions from the last 2 days?
Well, first, my impression is Megan told me 2 minutes, and you told me 30 seconds.
Yeah, we can maybe give you a minute.
Okay. So, water resilient cities. Well, the thing I got out of this is water resilient communities, because the communication piece, the people piece, is what's critical. And not just the people up on the stage, the people in this audience, the connections made with startup companies with Vidon, working on the LIFT program, were wonderful things today, over the last 2 days. There were three, Keith said we can remember three things. The first one I took was legitimacy, and you heard Karen and George talk about getting the irrigation license or going out to the main breaks, knowing what's really out there in the community is important, because that legitimacy makes the second thing, the communication, effective, and people then will have more trust in you when you're talking about risk and public health. And then the third thing was the ability to turn problems into opportunities. And for example, for those of you who may remember 20 years ago when nutrient removal and BNR started coming out, people were terrified, oh my God, my prices are going to go up and everything. Yesterday at DC Water, while George couldn't be here yesterday, the wastewater sector met the Chesapeake Bay's TMDL 10 years ahead of schedule. That was announced yesterday. And if we didn't have that push towards BNR and that we went in kicking and screaming, we wouldn't have companies like nutrient removal and upcycling that are recovering nutrients now and all the things in the brew. So those kind of taking advantage of that and seeing the people that came out for the brew and POW this time make me really excited about the future.
Great. Ellie, Daniel, I see you back there from Missouri. Your impressions?
Well, Dean, I've been with you through this journey from the get-go. And I've been in this water conservation industry for about 20 years. I'm here from Los Angeles, and I work for Zurn. And your enthusiasm was so infectious at that original presentation to us that you were able to convince the CEO of a manufacturing company that makes water conservation devices move his organization from Pennsylvania to here, because he caught your vision immediately between what you and Rich talked about, that he moved an entire organization here and is now building a huge facility and bringing all those employees here. So kudos to you and your staff. I watch this industry from a global view, and what you're doing here is wonderful. And this event this year has been your best ever, and I thank you for allowing us to participate. And it's just been great to watch what you're doing here. So continue the good work, and we're proud to be a part of it. So thank you.
And one of my partners in crime, it's interesting, is I travel with David Garman, and when he had the title Dean, we'd be together someplace and they'd say, Dean, and they'd go, which one? And I'm the real Dean. But it's really been a great pleasure to be able to be working. I've learned an awful lot from David Garman, your impressions of the last 2 days.
Thanks, real Dean. Water has always been our crisis. We started off talking about crises and the response and how much better it would be if we could do more planning, anticipate the crises, and manage these ahead of time. We heard this right at the beginning. This water around the world is being characterized by these crises. So it is innovating, exciting to be able to see both from the new technologies point of view, to see it from the point of view of what is happening in DC, what's happening in San Antonio. The people are getting ahead of it, and it required triggers rather than complete crises. What the vision, to my mind, has got to be is how do we go beyond this? Because we're still only just from an academic point of view, or even from a full management point of view, of being able to manage and measure everything, because until we measure it properly, we are not going to be able to manage it. We're seeing glimpses of that come out today, and when I see the appeal for the future coming through here is we're getting dots in this universe of water. Where it's leading to is water it's not a commodity, water is life. We heard this so many times, and we're also seeing water is a precious resource and a critical resource. When that, whether it's communication, education, and taking this message beyond this room, then I think we'll have achieved something. And what I'm seeing out of all these conversations today is hope. And I think that sort of hope and exposure and promotion is really going to change our vision, and I think lead to completely different industries to what we're seeing today.
Thank you, David. Okay, my friend.
I would pick up on what former Dean Garman just said. There was no pessimism on this stage, and I would almost like to leave us with, first of all, the entrepreneurs were one of the most fun elements. I love those 6. People are tackling the problems that need tackling in innovative ways, and I hope that somehow that finds its way out into universities and high schools and people looking for work just out of school, because water is a great place to jump into the revolution that hasn't happened yet. But I loved David Sedlak's sense of this experiment that they're going to do in Oakland, where they're going to weave the water system, the transportation system, the urban design, and energy all into the same framework. And frankly, it just sounded like a place I'd like to go live, It sounded wonderful. But also, it's a reminder of the same theme that we've sounded before. That's not one water, of course, that's one resilient city. But also, it requires the water people to leave the water treatment plant and go sit down with the people who run the rest of the city, share what they know, and also learn what everybody else has to know. And so connecting, even though it takes time and effort, is a huge force multiplier for us.
Absolutely. Thank you, my friend.
Pleasure.
All right,
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Dean. And again, I want to thank Charles. He did an excellent job moderating this event for us. It just brought a whole different life to it. And I was talking to Megan. She was very nervous about this format. And I said, the key to this format is really the moderator. The format can work if you've got a good moderator. We had a great moderator. Let's give Charles another round. So I'm going to leave you with some things to mark your calendars for. There is the WEFTech convention in New Orleans, great place, never been there, on September 24th, 28th. The Wisconsin Innovation Pavilion will be there, and the Water Council will be there. Also, later this year will be the grand opening of the Zurn headquarters. I believe everything's on time, so hopefully it will be opening, right? And that is in the Reed Street Yards across from the Global Water Center, so watch for that announcement. And then obviously in about a year, we'll be opening Global Water Center 2. There will be an event there, so I think you want to watch for those things. You will all be emailed a survey, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback. It's important in how we develop these programs in the future, so please give us any response on your survey. And if you've registered for the Water Hub facility tours, when we're done, you can go downstairs to the main entrance of the hotel, and there's buses there that you can board for those. And please, the most important date to mark is your calendar for the 10th Annual Water Summit next year, which is May 17th and 18th of next year here at the Pfister. I want to thank all of the participants, the sponsors, the speakers, everybody who made this so successful. Thank you so much, and please have safe travels, and we'll see you next year. Thank you.